They remembered the dragons. They remembered Robert's rebellion. They remembered who sat the Iron Throne. But somehow, no one remembered the long night. A winter so cold it cracked stone. A night so dark it lasted a generation. A war not between kings, but between the living and the dead. The long night wasn't a myth. It happened. It nearly ended humanity. And yet, by the time of Game of Thrones, the kingdoms of Westeros spoke of it as little more than a fairy tale. Why? How do you forget the apocalypse? To answer that, we must go back, far back, to the Age of Heroes. According to both the World of Ice and Fire and Old Nan's stories, the Long Night occurred over 8,000 years before Aegon's conquest. It was a time when the White Walkers emerged from the far north, bringing death and darkness to the world. Bran the Builder supposedly raised the wall after the Night's Watch drove them back. The last hero sought help from the children of the forest, and somewhere in the shadows, Azor Ahai was said to rise, a mythical saviour wielding Lightbringer, a flaming sword of hope. But here's the problem: 8,000 years is a long time, longer than the entirety of recorded real-world history. And Westeros? It never advanced like our world did. Most people in Westeros couldn't read. History wasn't passed through books, it was passed through stories. And stories change, stories fade, especially in a world torn by civil wars, mad kings and shifting dynasties. Even the Maesters of the Citadel, like Maester Yandel, cast doubt on the Long Night. In the World of Ice and Fire, he calls it lightly exaggerated. The Citadel prides itself on logic and skepticism, and in their efforts to be rational, they dismissed the truth. Only the Night's Watch remembered. But even their vows turned into tradition, not belief. The White Walkers hadn't been seen in thousands of years, so how could they be real? The North still told the stories. Old Nan spoke of them with trembling voice. But in the South, the tales were laughed at. Winter was a season, not a threat. Ice was just cold until it walked again. When the Game of Thrones begins, Westeros is politically fractured. The Targaryens are gone. Robert Baratheon rules, uninterested in the North. Jon Arryn is dead. Ned Stark is called south. Nobody is watching the Wall. Nobody believes in legends, but legends don't need belief to be true. When the White Walkers returned, the world wasn't ready, because it had forgotten. Forgotten that the greatest threat doesn't wear a crown. Forgotten that the dead don't bargain. And that's the irony. In Westeros, men write songs about battles for thrones. But the war that mattered most, the war against the Long Night, was nearly erased from memory. So, why did no one remember the Long Night? Because remembering means preparing, and power fears what it cannot control. And in a world obsessed with power, truth becomes the first thing left out in the snow. Subscribe for more deep dives into the legends and forgotten truths of Westeros.